Now we get to add our facial features and our facial expression. So what I have out in front of me is my design page, my clay mug, and some tools. So I can see my plan for my eyes, nose, and mouth, how my shape is going to be able to fit my features, or if I need to make any changes as I go. As I'm working today, I'm going to be lifting my mug and turning it so that you can see what I'm doing a little bit better, but I would like you to work with your clay on your table on top of that clay board as much as possible. I'm going to be starting by creating the eyes for my monster mug. So I'm just taking off a piece of clay that I think this size will work well, rolling it between my hands so that I can make the ball shape. I decided that I wanted my eyes to come out of the clay mug, so that's why they need to be a 3D shape. As I form the shape of my eye, I want to check the thickness, make sure that it's not too thick, and to make sure that it's looking like my design. So I want one eye bigger than the other. Any clay that I attach onto the side of my mug, I want to make sure is not any thicker than my finger so that it's not too thick when it goes in the kiln. So I have both of my eyes made, and now I'm ready to attach them to my clay. I'm going to use either a knife or a fork or a metal tool to score, slip, and smooth my clay. So I'm figuring out right now where I want them to be placed. Now I'm going to make my deeper score marks and make sure that my attachment will be really solid between the two pieces of clay. I'm also going to score the back of the eyes. Any clay that I attach together, I need to score both pieces. Then I will slip and smooth. So I have a spray bottle of water today. You're just going to dip your hands and take a little bit of water in your fingers from your water cup. Then I'm ready to place my clay pieces onto my mug. And what I'm going to do is press on them a little bit, not to flatten them out a whole lot, but to press any air or extra water out from the two pieces that I just attached. As I continue to press my clay into each other, especially from this angle, I can see that there are still these gaps in between the eyes and the clay mug. So I'm going to use a tool to help me make sure that I press the eye into the mug around the edges to get rid of any sort of line before they were attached so that they look like they become one piece of clay. Anytime I use a tool, I want to make sure that I'm also using my hand to smooth out any sort of lines or bumps that my tool creates. So even though my tool might change the shape of my eye a little bit, I can just go back with my finger and make sure that that's really smooth and it gets back to its original shape. If I score, slip, and smooth, but don't have really nice attachments, my clay pieces could still fall off either when my clay is drying later or when it's in the kiln. I took a lot more time to keep smoothing, but for the sake of the video to go faster, I am stopping it short, but you should take a lot of time to smooth your two pieces of clay together. Once I'm happy enough with the smoothing for now, I can move on to another facial feature and always come back and keep smoothing the eyes later. So now I'm going to move on to the mouth design, and I'm looking at where I have things placed so far and the size of my mug, and I'm going to determine where I should place the mouth. So I'm just using a pencil, or you can use a clay tool to just lightly carve in, almost sketching into the clay where you want to place something. And that way I can wipe away anything I don't like. So I'm just very lightly carving into the clay just a little bit to place the shape of my mouth where I'd like it to go first. Now I'm going to create the shapes of my teeth. I've decided I want the teeth to come out of the mug so that they're more 3D, and the inside of the mouth will be carved in. So I'm just spreading out a piece of workable clay, flatten it on the table so that I can create those triangle shapes, just sketching it first with a clay knife and then actually cutting in with the clay knife. And my teeth should be smaller than my finger. They shouldn't be any thicker than that. So I'm going to cut out a few shapes so that they're somewhat close to my design. I know I can kind of mold them to look the way I want to when they're actually on the mug. So I'm cutting out 4 different teeth shapes. and then I can store away my extra clay. Making sure that my clay isn't drying out in front of me, so any extra clay or my mug, I should be maintaining how much water is there. So what I'm going to do now with the teeth is form them and make sure that they look the shape and size that I want before attaching them. I'm going to place my teeth under the mug to make sure that they all fit and that I like the way that they're shaped and sized before I score, slip, and smooth. That way I can still take them off at this time. Now I'm going to score, slip, and smooth each tooth one at a time. And I'm scoring the area that I want the tooth to go without worrying if the score marks are going too far, because I can smooth them away later, but making sure my score marks go deep into the clay. Then I'll score the back of the tooth that I'm going to attach. Then I'm using my spray bottle to add a little water. You're just going to dip your hands into your water cup and apply a little bit of water there and press one piece of clay into the other. I'm not going to press it too hard so I lose the thickness of the tooth and the shape, just enough to push out any air or water. And then I'll use a tool to make sure I'm going around the outside to make sure it connects into one piece of clay. I can no longer see the seam in between the tooth and the clay mug. This clay tool is helping me get into those smaller areas. It's going to get a little bit messy now and things won't stay as smooth as I want them to, but once I have the teeth attached and I let my clay dry a little bit in this area, I'll be able to come back and keep smoothing and making my details more accurate. Now that I have my teeth added and the clay has had a few minutes to dry without me adding any water to it, I'm going to take my hand over the teeth and try and smooth as much as possible with my hand. Since I was just using the tool, I want to now use my hand and my fingers to smooth. And again, I'm going to smooth as much as I can right now, and then I might need to wait and keep working on other areas and come back to finish up more smoothing later. I'm done with the mouth for now, so I'm going to move on to the nose. One way I could form the nose is by adding on clay. So if I took very small pieces of clay and placed them where I wanted them to be, that's one way I can make them look more 3D. Another way I could create the nose on my mug is by carving into my clay. So that's what I've decided to do, so that I have a variety of added on clay and areas that I carve into the clay. I'm going to use a tool that comes to a small point and remove a little bit of clay at a time. I have a small nose to add, so I don't want to take away too much at one time. Just a little bit at first, and then once I'm happy with where it's placed, I can keep carving. If I'm carving into my clay, I still need to think about my clay's thickness, so I should make sure I'm not carving and accidentally going through my mug, so be very careful as you carve into your clay piece. I'm going to trace my mouth shape back in as well with this tool so that I can start removing the part that would be the inside of the mouth, so that I have a variety of 3D effects and parts that go into my clay. So my teeth pop out and the mouth will go into the clay mug. Now that I have the mouth drawn out where I want it placed, I'm going to start carving in with a really thin metal tool and carve away at the clay so it looks like the inside of the mouth actually starts to go inside of the mug. But I'm going to be careful that I'm not carving too far, and I'm going to start smoothing as I go, either with my finger or another tool. I'm also going to carve out the pupil of the eyes. I thought that'd add some nice variety to my eye 3D shape, and then I'm carving in as well. So I'm going to use my hand to smooth anything out after I use a tool.